just wanted to say thank you for coming and welcome to the Clare. I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Lindquist for the last 12 years at Northwestern here at the Clare, so I'm so excited to hear her present and learn what she has to say, and we're so happy that she's here. So thank you for coming, and I will turn it over to her.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hey. So let's talk today about living longer, living stronger, and preventing Alzheimer's disease. There's been a lot of stuff out in the news. Yeah, feel free to turn around your chairs if you want. It's a casual group. And I'm just looking at the food coming out. I am like in love with this food, and Chef Agap, he's a phenomenal cook. Chef, sorry. If you don't know me, I actually went to Northwestern Medical School. I did an internal medicine residency and also a geriatric fellowship, combined with an internal medicine fellowship. And then I became faculty at Northwestern in 2005. And then I got a master's in public health, as well as an MBA from Kellogg. So I always teach people I was single for a long time. But for the food. And so I became chief of geriatrics at Northwestern in 2011. And in 2012, I became medical director over here at the Clare. So I'm lucky enough to work with Monica Risbold, super fan, and I get to see the lovely food that gets brought to the terraces from Chef Agap, amazing chef. And so if you come over to the Clare, where you'll usually see me is over on the terraces side, and that's where people that are being hospitalized and they need to have subacute rehab, which is physical therapy, before they get back to their home, or people start progressing and they get a little bit worse, and they need a little bit more physical therapy. So the terraces side is where people get better and get stronger so they can get back into their normal lives. And just a fun plug, Northwestern Geriatrics, which is my group that I lead, we're actually number 8 in the country. So if you think about how much a feat that is, we're number 1 in Illinois, and those are some of the programs that are ahead of us and behind us. So it's pretty fun. Mass General and Harvard is below us, would you believe? I love doing geriatrics. Geriatrics is the care of people over the age of 65, and we specialize in taking care of seniors. So we have extra specialty training in taking care of seniors. And these were 2 of my favorite seniors. These were my grandparents. And so my grandparents, they lived in rural Wisconsin. So you can imagine what their diet was. So we had a lot of cheese, a lot of brats, and when I got of age, close to age, we had a lot of beer. So beer, a good German lager, right? But what happened with both of them is that their memory started getting worse. And so my grandfather got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we had to move both of them down here to Chicago. And so I have a very strong history of Alzheimer's in my family. So besides these 2, my mom also has Alzheimer's. So the writing's on the wall. When is it going to strike me? So every time I have a senior moment, I'm like, oh, is that Alzheimer's coming up? And so I hear these all the time. I see patients in my outpatient office, as well as here at the Clare. And the question I get a lot is, I forget a few things now and then. You know, these are senior moments. Do I have to worry about it? Dad sure repeats himself a lot. Who here repeats themselves?
All the time.
All the time, right? I repeat myself with my kids all the time. And my sister died with Alzheimer's. I'm worried I might be getting it now. So this is something that we're always worried about. I know myself. One of the things I get questions on too is, how do I know if these senior moments are early Alzheimer's disease? Because we all have these little kind of forgetful spots, like, oh, where did I leave my cane? And I got somebody's beautiful walking stick up here, so don't forget it. But as a physician, what we usually will do is that we'll do cognition testing. So everyone, when you see your doctor at least once a year, as a part of the annual Medicare wellness visit, you should have your cognition tested, okay? And I always love to have my seniors cheat a little bit, so I give you guys the test ahead of time. So if you want to study up for your test, okay, the test that we usually give people is something called the mini cup. And so what it is that you're given 3 words. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
I just would like to have Chef let us know
what we're eating.
served as we're served.
Perfect.
Your presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. Lindquist.
Okay. Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes. Can everybody hear me better here?
Yes.
Come out. So welcome to the Clare. On behalf of representing the Food and Beverage Department, Francesco, who's my boss, and I'm Hagop, I'm the chef for the Clare. Welcome. So we have a 3-course for everybody today. You know, everybody pitches that, oh, you know, they put always their best foot forward on sales and marketing events. This is kind of what we do on a daily basis for our residents. So the first course is going to be hummus with a Jerusalem salad. We have a stuffed grape leaf vegetarian, and we have a little bit of pickled turnips and a little bit of micro parsley on top. We have our microgreens grown to us. I have a good relationship with the grower, so he takes the baby pictures and sends it to me, then I see the whole process. So that's the first course. The second course is going to be a New Zealand Ora King salmon with a Mediterranean potato salad, just olive oil, lemon juice, Aleppo pepper, extra virgin olive oil, Ora King salmon I just sauteed and served chilled. We just have a little bit of a relish with tomato, capers, olives, lemon juice, olive oil. On top we put a little bit of micro parsley, and that red thing that you see, it's called red vein sorrel, okay? And then the third course is going to be a triple cream brie with a fig and black tea jam, and on top I'm going to have a little bit of lemon balm on top of it. So again, welcome to the Clare, and enjoy the afternoon.
Thank you, Chef.
Thank you, Start eating now.
Go ahead.
So seriously, start eating, you guys. Okay, enjoy yourself, eat up. Because I would be eating if I wasn't sitting or standing up here talking. But Chef Hagop is 100% correct. This is what we see come up on the terraces side. So we see the same food come up. It's phenomenal, I gotta tell you. And when you think about what we get in the hospital as far as hospital food, and I've worked at many different, continuing care retirement communities, and I love it because he is so hands-on, picking out food, knowing what's coming up, and it's spot on, it's beautiful. I've never had a bad meal come up, I gotta tell you. So, let's talk about cognition testing. So, what we usually will do, we'll ask you 3 words, we'll have you draw a clock, this person failed it, and then we'll have you repeat those words. Okay, so you guys can test each other out before you go to see your doctor, okay? Or if your husband or spouse fails, then you can be like, man, you guys, you got to keep eating that Mediterranean diet, okay? If you miss any of those, if you have problems repeating a word, if you have a problem with doing the clock or recalling a word, then there's something off. So then we'll progress to a Montreal Cognitive Assessment, and you can actually download this online and do it for like a parlor trick where everybody in your group gets to try it out and see who's got the highest score. But this is the test where you can actually go through things and see, where do you have the problem with your memory? Is it delayed recall? Is it attention? And it kind of breaks it down for us. So when you hear people talk about memory loss, Alzheimer's just doesn't happen immediately. It's not, Thursday I'm having Alzheimer's. Okay, that's not how it works. What we usually see is a progression. So with mild cognitive impairment, you usually have a deficit in one part of your memory, okay? In the absence of any problems with daily living. So you're able to get around, do everything, but you have problems with math, or you have problems with one domain. So there's no functional change, okay? And you may be more aware of memory loss, so you actually have insight. So one of my favorite examples is my mom, who's a school teacher, loves to teach math, and now she's having problems doing with addition and subtraction. Okay, so you can see how there's one domain. Still able to live around, able to drive, able to get places, does the laundry, everything, reads, no problem, but she does have that one area of domain issue. Then we progress to early Alzheimer's disease, and this is where that Montreal Cognitive Test is a little bit lower. But what we see is that people have multiple problems. So there's naming difficulties, we see a lot of recall that's problematic, and there's decreased insight. So I always love it because if you ask a person and they have memory loss and it's a mild cognitive impairment, they'll say, oh yeah, I do have a little memory loss. But if you talk to somebody who's starting to get Alzheimer's, they'll say, my memory is perfect, I have no problems, I am sharp as a tack. They have no insight, okay? They'll also have some irritability, some mood changes. And what we often think about with Alzheimer's is that it's an onion disease, okay? which means, oh yeah, come on in, it's a party.
Yeah.
So, with it has to be a party. So we think of Alzheimer's as an onion, okay? Because your memories that are most recent are the ones that disappear. So people can't remember what they had for breakfast, or they can't remember what they had for dinner, but they'll be able to tell you who they went to high school with, okay? So you actually retain the memories that are the deepest, okay? And so we know that MCI, or mild cognitive impairment, those seniors' moments, will actually progress to Alzheimer's, but it's not a death wish, because there's a bunch of studies out there that shows that there's still people that just keep progressing with mild cognitive impairment and they don't advance to Alzheimer's, okay? It increases your risk of getting Alzheimer's, but you can still keep having these senior moments and enjoying life, okay? So the big question is, how do we stay in that group of people that don't progress to Alzheimer's, right? Nobody wants to get Alzheimer's. Does anyone here want to get Alzheimer's? No. Francesco? No.
Sometimes I want to forget something.
I like that. So, as a doctor, one of the questions I get is, can I start a drug, right? Drugs fix everything. And the answer is no. So, drugs do not fix everything. And so what we've seen is that there's a lot of medicines out on the market. There's even ones that have come out in the past year or two which have a lot of publicity. You know, Aricept, Namenda. And what all the studies have shown is that over years and years, there's no difference. They're still the same. There's no difference from placebo. And what we think is interesting is that, well, I find this interesting, is that there's been over 2,000 clinical trials targeting this amyloid plaques and tau tangles, which people think is the big reason why people have Alzheimer's. And out of 2,000 trials, not one drug, not one thing has worked. So that's why, I see some people nodding in back. That's why people are saying this is not the right target. We should not be targeting this. This is a messed up thing. This is not these Alzheimer's plaques and tangles. Because if they were, we would have found a drug by then. And the other thing that's interesting too is that the difference between a healthy brain and an Alzheimer's brain is that the brain tends to shrink, okay? So you see a lot of shrinkage with Alzheimer's, but then you see these amyloid plaques and tangles. So we're getting to the point in our field that this is not the target. So I love it, after 2,000 trials, we're like, maybe it's not this group, right? We're hard to convince as physicians. So some people said, well, what about nutraceuticals? What about, you know, certain vitamins? So vitamin E has not been shown to work. Okay, it actually increases bleeding. So do not take vitamin E. It's been shown to be really bad for you. You know, some people said, let's try ginkgo biloba. That has not been shown to be effective. Who watches Wheel of Fortune? You see those commercials all the time with Prevagen. You know, I'm alive and talking to people because I use Prevagen. That is a load of crap. Okay. It's a jellyfish extract, and if you actually go on their website, because they say science-based, okay, they're very specific in how they talk about it, but they're actually, their company-sponsored trial shows that it's not effective, okay? So they did science, but the science doesn't show it's effective. So I always tell people you're better off to get a good meal somewhere than you are to order some Prevagen while you're watching Wheel of Fortune. So other two things that are coming out is turmeric and resveratrol, which is a grapeseed extract. And this kind of goes a little bit more into the Mediterranean diet. The verdict is out on these two types of vitamins, but we're still kind of interested to see where it's going. The other thing too is I usually tell my patients to take a multivitamin. The multivitamin has been shown to be a little bit helpful for the brain, so it's totally fine to take one multivitamin a day. So what else can you do to prevent Alzheimer's, right? So what I like to tell people is that you should think about your brain as a muscle, okay? We saw that picture earlier of the brain that was shrunk down. So the more that you use your brain, the better it'll be. So what do I mean by that? Active learning. So literally everyone here in this room, you are doing active learning and you're helping your brain and you're preventing Alzheimer's. And I'll tell you, that's one of the things that I love here at the Clare is that there's such an active community. And I've worked at a bunch of other places and they're not as active, I'll tell you, because you see people going to Greek Islands, you see people going to different conferences, different talks, different beer and wine hour, which is one of my favorites. I think there's even a craft beer event at one point. But that's one of the things is that here you get a lot of active learning, you get a lot of socialization. I'm giving a talk to the Independent Living Group next month. Social stimulation. So there's been a lot of studies that have shown the more you socialize, the better you are. So think about your brain, and if you're sitting in four walls without talking to anybody, your brain goes to pudding, okay? Think about how you guys felt during COVID, right? We were all there, where you're just like climbing the walls. I can't, I need to talk to somebody. So we know that social stimulation improves your brain strength and actually makes your brains a little bit thicker. And then exercise programs. So the more that you exercise, the better you'll be. And there's been so many studies that physical exercise actually improves your cognition. And if you don't get a chance to look at it here at the Clare, I love it. They've got like a little pool, they've got an outdoor walking space, which I don't even have in my building. I live about 3 blocks from here, but it's fantastic. So there was this really cool conference that was last year in July, the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. I love going to this meeting. It's from everybody all over the world. You're talking Russia, Ukraine, China, everybody, the Amsterdam group, Germany, the United States. Everybody is coming together to try to figure out Alzheimer's, okay, to figure out what we can do. And they present the cutting edge research. So one of the studies that got a lot of press and we were really excited about was a study of exercise in older adults. And people who exercise, they actually did not progress from those senior moments to Alzheimer's. So they looked whether or not if it was regular physical activity, if it was high exertion, low exertion. They said it doesn't matter what you do, it actually helps your brain, okay? And it protects the brain cells against damage. And so this was over 12 months. Another study said even just starting today, doing 2 months of exercise actually prevents Alzheimer's. So I usually tell my patients, if you haven't started exercising, start exercising now. I don't care if you were exercising when you're 50, 20, whatever. Even if you're 99 and you start exercising today, you've got a very good chance of helping your brain. So who here likes to exercise? That's awesome. There you go, you guys. So one of the big questions I get from my patients is, what's the right amount of exercise? And what do you think I say? More. They hate me. My patients hate me. So what I usually tell them is more. Even if you do a half an hour a day, even if you do an hour a day, you can always tweak up and do 5 minutes more. And also doing strength training is important. So strength and cardio are both exciting.
Thank you.
So what else can I do for my Alzheimer's or to prevent it? And this is the coolest thing. This is why this Mediterranean diet is top notch in my book. So what can I eat to prevent Alzheimer's disease? So literally you are what you eat. And this is where we're kind of heading towards as an Alzheimer's field, is the gut microbiome, okay? So your gut microbiome is composed of trillions of bacteria, protozoa, viruses, and fungus. Doesn't that sound yummy, right? But would you believe you have more bacteria in your body than you do have human cells? So there's roughly 40 trillion bacterial cells in your body and only about 30 trillion human cells. So you are actually more bacteria than human. Okay, so if you look at each other, you're more bacteria, okay? And what we're looking at now is that the gut microbiome has been shown to potentially regulate neuroinflammation. So what exactly is neuroinflammation? So if you ever get a cut and that little pink stuff that goes around it, so that is inflammation, okay? Same with if you ever have arthritis and your knee joint gets a little warm, then that is inflammation. So that's tissue that's angry, okay? And so the mechanism is still being worked out, but what they're thinking is that the gut microbiome and neuroinflammation in the brain is linked, okay? So there's been studies that have come out that show a decrease in gut bacteria diversity is seen in people with Alzheimer's. So what does that mean? If you have the same bug, then that's not enough. You need multiple different types of bugs, okay, in order to protect your brain. And the thought process is that there might be specific types of gut bacteria that prevent Alzheimer's, okay? The second major theory that we're seeing is that the gut microbiome can actually help regulate the blood-brain barrier. Now, if you guys remember right, back when you were in college or high school, that blood-brain barrier, which is the tissue that keeps the brain safe from the blood, what happens is, think about it as almost being like a layer of sludge or like a saran wrap. And what the bacteria does is it protects it. So there's been research out there that when they take away all the bacteria from mice, there's actually a lot more holes in your blood-brain barrier. So they think that this bacteria is actually helping to line the brain so that bad stuff doesn't come through. Okay? And so the next part was that back at that conference that we went to, is that people that consume more than 20% of your diet from ultra-processed food have a huge risk of cognitive loss. Okay? So they studied over 11,000 people, or over 10,000 people over 8 years, and found that if you were eating a lot of ultra-processed food, which I throw back to my Wisconsin lifestyle, which is your brats, which is your frozen pizzas, which is a lot of your cheeses. What they found is that people who had a lot of ultra-processed food in their diet actually had worse problems with verbal memory, verbal fluency, memory, executive function. Their memories were dropping off fast, okay? So a lot of times people will ask me, what is ultra-processed food? So sodas, white bread, so you want whole wheat bread, potato chips, I love my potato chips, and frozen junk food. So frozen pizzas, everything that's been processed multiple times. And that's one thing that I see a lot at the Clare is that there's not a lot of ultra-processed food coming upstairs. A lot of it is fresh off of different farmers' areas and so forth, which is phenomenal. And so this is why we talk about the Mediterranean diet. Now, of all the diets out there, the Mediterranean diet has been shown to be the best at preventing the neuroinflammation and the inflammation that you see in the gut biome. Okay? So researchers have found that eating a Mediterranean diet slows changes in the brain. And it is actually really exciting because it's a lifestyle change that can actually prevent Alzheimer's. So what you're having for lunch today and what you eat here at the Clare can actually prevent you from getting Alzheimer's. So the other thing too is that there's the other diet, which is Mediterranean DASH, which is another way of kind of talking about a Mediterranean diet. So when we talk about the Mediterranean diet, we're looking at foods that are high in olive oil, fish, berries, salmon, very high, high vegetarian meals, and that's something that is really good for you, okay, to decrease inflammation. So much so that I've actually gone this route, so I've tried to eat more fish, tried to eat more salmon, and so forth. And so I'm going to pass it over to Chef Hackup if he's back there.
I go, you still here?
I'm here.
Do you want to say a few words about your food more so, or how do you pick your foods every day? Because you pick a lot of good healthy foods.
So when I come in, I'm going to put my boss on the spot. So everything that we do, like when I come to work, there we go. Everything we do, it's kind of like a partnership. So I come in, I speak with Francesco, and we talk about the direction of the program, how we're going to keep reinventing ourselves. Also our market is very good. You tell me what the chef's market is, and I'll tell you what the chef's going to be, if that makes sense. So if I'm a chef for a community that wants hamburgers, I'm a hamburger chef. So, but our community is diverse. But also, I think that I've been here for 10 years and a few months. I think the residents trust the food and beverage program, where they kind of trust where we're going. So this gives us, the residents are confident in us, and we don't really get questions out when we're trying to do things. But also, we work as hard as we can to create variety. We know that if you bring 300 people in front of us, each person is going to have a different palate or a different diet. So, we have the different outlets, meaning areas that you can get food. So we have the marketplace, we have the bistro, we have the Grafton, and sales and marketing department can tell you more about these. Once a month on the 53rd floor, we have a wine dinner. It's really, really nice. It's about 5 or 6 courses for 15 residents. So I guess our goal is to hit every palate. We work very hard. The menus change every week, so things don't get boring. That's pretty much it. We had a dining menu the other day, the dining committee meeting, and they're like, Chef, how do you do it? I'm like, well, you have to be kind of crazy to keep up with this type of pace, but food is my passion. my mother's too. If you would bring any other olive oil home other than extra virgin olive oil, she won't talk to you for like a week, and she'll complain about my brother and sister about me. But food is a part of my life. We love food. We hire people who love food, and we want to hire people who are going to become chefs. And the last 4 or 5 years, we've sent 3 people to other areas to become sous chefs and executive chefs. So the track record is good. That's all I can say. Just read the portfolio on our dining program, and I guess the proof is in the pudding. That's what they say. But I'm going to hand it over to Francesco.
Just real quick, actually, one thing about the chef that you probably it does have a really long process, actually, to pick the food and to set on menus. So one thing that you won't see at the Clare that most of the time happens in other communities is you see these cycle menus going out for 4 or 5 weeks at a time, months at a time. We don't do that here because we try to work with fresh ingredients as much as possible. We're just having a conversation with Mr. Berry there about the variety of fish that we have had this week. And reason being because now suppliers with the warming weather have a little more variety, such as Dover sole, such as the sea bass from Australia that we get for today for the specials. And sometimes we don't know to the last minute whether or not we're gonna get that fish, if we're gonna get the meat that we ordered, because we want to work as much as possible with very minimal processed food and a lot of fresh ingredients. Everything starts with fresh ingredients, and Chef is really good at keeping true to that commitment. It has been good for 10 years. The other thing that I would say about our program, and that's probably very unique, is we don't stop thinking forward. Chef has been here 10 years. I've been here a little more, 8 almost, somewhere in there. And we have seen our program evolve with the residents that have come in. We listen to residents when it comes to food. We listen to their ideas, their their trends, what they're following. We have had a lot more additional variety and gearing towards Mediterranean diets because of the fact that the residents that have been moving in for the last 3, 4, 5 years have demanded a little more of that vegetarian, Mediterranean style of eating. I am from the Mediterranean, I'm from Sicily. He's from the Mediterranean as well. So we're very familiar with the ingredients of what we eat and with what we prepare. So these things are really not some things that we do once in a while. These are consistent ingredients that you'll find in our menus. The Clare, it's very unique in many ways. I think the food and beverage program is very unique, but it is very unique because of the residents that move out to Clare. The market is what dictates what we do. Just like Chef says, if we have a crowd that likes only hamburgers, we will only do probably 35 different type of hamburgers, which we do sometimes, by the way. But the idea is to have a program that works and changes with the residents, that moves along with the times. That's the promise. That's really the idea behind what we do. So thank you for coming in today and trying it out.
Oh, thank you so
Bye,
much.
Chef. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.
Chef is one of my favorite people, so I'm just in awe of everything that they send out. He deserves a raise.
Making too much money already.
So, I hope you guys are enjoying your meal. I'll talk a little bit about Northwestern Geriatrics. So this is our team. We actually connected with the Clare about 11 years ago, 12 years ago. And we actually have made Northwestern's Geriatrics program an age-friendly health system, okay? So as part of our age-friendly health system, you can come see a geriatrician in our outpatient offices. We also have a home care program, so we will come to your home and see you there. If you're homebound, nobody here looks homebound because you're out of the house, okay? But if you ever become homebound, we actually can come see you in the home. We have an inpatient service, so we can visit you while you're in the hospital. And we also have a geriatric emergency department. So if you guys are ever in the emergency department at Northwestern, you can ask to see a Jedi. Right? You love that term? So a Jedi, like Star Wars, boom, boom. So these are geriatric nurses specially trained to come help you to make you be able to return home from the emergency room, okay? So if you ever come to Northwestern's ED, say, I'd like to see one of the Jedis, okay? They automatically will come to the people that are most at risk or they think are able to return home. Our goal is to get you back home and to avoid any unnecessary hospitals stays. But in the event that you are hospitalized, one of the things that we've connected with the Clare is that Northwestern built a post-acute skilled nursing facility network. And the Clare is one of our catchment areas. So what happens is that a person is hospitalized at Northwestern, okay, or Rush or wherever, so you don't necessarily have to be Northwestern. And a Northwestern geriatrician who works both at the hospital also works here at the Clare.
Thank you.
So you'll see one of myself or one of our partners, and we'll catch you. So you'll come on over, we'll be able to have the same electronic health record that they have at Northwestern over here. We actually use the same lab service as Northwestern as here. So all of your labs will be drawn here at the Clare, but they get put into Northwestern's bank, and they actually are put into the Northwestern's Epic system. You guys have heard of Epic, maybe? And so your doctors can actually see it on whatever Epic system there's out there. And so besides that, we can actually communicate with your doctors, and all of our notes get put back into Epic back and forth. So we're fully integrated with the common Epic EHR between the Clare and Northwestern. And this has actually helped a lot in coordinating transfers. So we can have a resident who's living in the independent living side that gets hospitalized. We can actually look at the chart, see what's going on. As medical director, I get a lot of calls, so-and-so's over there. Do you think that they're going to need a skilled nursing bed? Do you think that we need them to get physical therapy before they go home? And we've got a fantastic side on the terrace, there's fantastic staff that they'll actually say, okay, this is one of our residents, they're over there, let's get them back here, get them stronger, and get them back home. So people that are on the independent living side do get prioritized to come back and get rehab if we need them. And so there's a great deal of coordination. And the other fun thing too is that whenever somebody gets sick, because people do get sick, especially on the terraces side, these are people that have had really bad heart failure, or they've got cancer, and they're getting chemo, and they're getting sicker, and they need to be seen in the emergency room, or they need to get stuff that we can't do here. I can actually just call over there to the emergency department and say, hey, Jedi nurse, can you set so-and-so up for X, Y, and Z? And they'll be waiting for you and have you shipped in and do it all right there. So it's a nice way of kind of making it so it's a nice loop. If something happens here at the Clare, or if something has to go back and forth between the hospital and the Clare. So I think we're getting to dessert time. So feel free to start on dessert, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
I've got two questions for you, doctor. So with the study, what about red wine? Is that, because I've heard about, drink red wine, it's good for you. Is that true?
Red wine is very good for you.
It is.
And so I actually started drinking red wine. I am a lager and hazy IPA drinker,
Okay.
but I have started drinking red wine, a special nod to the Italian in the room. So yeah, red wine is actually really good for you in moderation. I don't expect you to drink a bottle a night. One of my favorite residents, and I'm not naming names, but she would have a cocktail before cocktail hour, and then she'd have a couple glasses of wine at dinner, and then she would go to an after dinner event or something else, and she was falling all the time, and I'm like, how much are you drinking? She's like, oh, I just have one sip now and then. And bear in mind, she's like 80 pounds. So she was falling all over the place. So we actually cut her back a little bit to 1 glass of wine. But not before she fired me. So she fired me first. And then she's like, okay, I need to cut back on the wine. Because I suggested cutting back. But no, actually, you're absolutely right. Red wine is wonderful for you. There's been more research out there that you can actually get the same effect by drinking 12 ounces of beer. But in thought, it's actually the Pinot Noir is supposed to be the healthiest of the red wines that are out there. So.
And then my second question is, with the geriatric practice that you're in, what age would someone start with a geriatric practice?
Yeah, so great question. The question is, when do you come hang out with me in geriatrics? Nobody here looks old enough. So, what happens is that you, in general, you have to be 65 years and older to see a geriatrician. A geriatrician is considered a specialty, so you can continue to see your internist or your family practice doc. They can hang out with you, talk about diabetes, talk about you name it, hypertension. And then you can see a cardiologist, like a heart doctor, or you can see a geriatrician, which is a senior specialist. So I have some patients that I see as a primary care doc, as a geriatrician, but then I have other patients that I see as a geriatric consultation, okay? And what we tend to do is we tend to just point and look at the senior issues. So how is your gait? How is your balance? Are you at risk for falling? One of my favorite things is polypharmacy. So if you take too many medicines, can I trim it off? Because that happens so many times among my seniors, is that you get to a point where you're seeing 5 or 6 different doctors and they keep on adding on medicines. And I always think of geriatrics as the forest, because we look at the forest, we don't look at the tree. So we see sometimes that medicines are being used to treat side effects of other medicines, or medicines you might have outgrown because you were taking them when you were 40, but you may not need now that you're in your 70s. So that's one thing I love doing on the terraces, because when people get sent over from the hospital for rehab, for physical therapy, they come over with 30 meds that they just get added on. As needed this, as needed this, as needed this. So one of the great things that I get to do is take off the ones that are unnecessary, and then we usually follow you for a couple weeks and we see if you really need them, we can add them back on. If we don't, then that's one less medicine that you need, and one more way of saving money for you guys to go out, eat somewhere nice and get a good Greek Islands meal, right? So that's what geriatrics does. If you want, feel free to give us a call. I don't even know if I include my number, never mind. Northwestern Geriatrics, feel free to Google us, but there's plenty of physicians out there. Don't bother seeing me, because I'm hanging out here at the Clare. So if you want to come see me, you can hang out at the Clare, but my clinic is crazy busy right now, so down here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, since you're so familiar with the
Keep pouring. Are you driving? You're not driving, are you? Oh,
no.
Maybe carried a big breakfast.
With the Asiatic, not Asiatic.
Mediterranean diets.
Mediterranean.
That's okay. Hey.
Can you name some restaurants in the area that are good with the Mediterranean?
I'm actually going to pass it over to you, because you would know.
Well, I would know, but I don't. No, there's actually, I don't remember the name, but there's actually one on Orleans. It's inside the, what's the hotel? Is that Ayat Place, I think? It's a small little restaurant that serves Mediterranean food. There is a couple from well, no, but that's, so it depends. Let me be specific a little bit. Okay, so when we say Mediterranean food and Mediterranean diets, generally speaking, the cuisine will vary depending on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for, so Mediterranean, I can tell you anything from the Provence or of France all the way down to Israel or Tunisia or Morocco or Sicily or Italy. All of that is part of the Mediterranean diet. I think restaurants itself, I would be a little more wary. Just like Dr. Lindquist was saying before, there is a lot of advertisement about eat this, don't eat that, and what something might feel healthy. So restaurant cooking is a little different than the home cooking, right? I think what you want to look for is any restaurant that is part of the Mediterranean area, whether it's a French restaurant or an Italian restaurant or a Greek restaurant or a Lebanese restaurant for that matter. There's a few of those. Even Naf Naf Grill, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's a sort of a fast food type of Mediterranean, but you see when I say fast food, that doesn't sound very healthy, does it? Because the reason is because Mediterranean can be as unhealthy as anything else, depending on how. The trick on Mediterranean, I'm Sicilian. My mom used to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to make tomato sauce for us to eat at noon. Why? Because the tomato should be cooking slowly, break down slowly. You don't kill the molecules and the nutrients and the flavors that are in there. And you keep adding whatever you need to have, whether it's the basil, with time. Tempo is everything in cooking. The ingredients are very, so if I would suggest any restaurant that tells you we work with fresh ingredients and they can list their suppliers, that is the restaurant that I would go to. Otherwise, if they use chicken stock on their in their dishes or anything of that sort, even though it's advertised as Mediterranean, French cuisine is Mediterranean, but if they cook with butter, it's not as healthy, right? Those are the things that I will look into. So I can't really name the names, but I would say look for fresh ingredients. The simple ingredients, the simple dishes will be the ones that I will look for too, because that's the other thing that I know is if anything has a sauce or a lot of stuff in it, most likely it's more about the overall flavor than it is about the actual natural ingredient. A good ingredient stands out on its own. That's why you see very little things on Mediterranean diets put together. Most of the time it's extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, herbs, basil, parsley, thyme, that kind of stuff. That's what I would look for.
Follow.
Salud.
Look it up on Open Table.
I'll look it up on Open Table too. We can do that too. Thank you. I didn't think on Open Table. I don't go out as much. I'm always here at the Clare.
I
Yes.
have a quick question.
Yes.
Is there any difference between Italian olive oil and Greek olive oil?
Yes. I know I sound biased. There is actually a difference between Tuscan olive oil and Sicilian olive oil. And just like wine, olive oil gets the flavor and the consistency, the minerality of the soil. So, for instance, the weather patterns make a difference. The altitude of the olive trees make a difference. How mature are the olive trees? For instance, they started to make Californian olive oil, for instance, right? The trees are really young yet to be producing that very green first press olive oil that you normally see in some of the bottles that have a little residue at the bottom, just like wine. The soil, the environment will make a difference. Now, the coast of Greece, or the coast, along the coast, you find a little more similarities, but if you go a little more in the inland, there are differences between the olive oil that you get from Greece and the one that you get from Sicily or Tuscany or some other, or Spain for them. But yeah, it's hard to believe, but there is a subtle difference between them. And you taste it. For instance, Sicilian olive oil from the coast has a little more pungent taste, almost kind of a little bitter aftertaste if you try it. Versus some of the olive oils from Greece are a little lighter in color and a little more aromatic and more towards almost like an oregano type of flavor to it, because of where they grow, because of where they are. I know it sounds like a lot, and I didn't know that I knew about this much about olive oil.
Peter, do you have a question too?
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Lindquist, it's
Oh, I
sometimes,
want to listen to him. He's
No,
really
no, no,
interesting. No, I did not know there was differences in the olive oil.
Oh,
So
there
it's
is, there
like,
is.
wow. I'm sorry, I'm still in awe.
there are some difficulties in finding internists, general practitioners these days. I think perhaps because they're not paid as well as so-called specialists. For those of us who are over 65, however,
Yeah.
does it make sense in the Northwestern system, for example, to actually use or go to a geriatric physician as basically your principal?
Yeah, I'll tell you, right now I hired 2 brand new geriatricians. One is named Dr. Alex Petrakos. She's a good Greek woman. And the other one is Dr. Ellie Geller. She came to us from New York. The other one came to us from Vanderbilt. Brand new. They've only been with us now for 6 months. they are filling up fast. So they are taking primary care, they're primary care geriatricians, okay? What happens is most of us fill up within the first, 6 months, 8 months. And then that's where it's hard to find a doc willing to take primary care geriatrics. A thing that's working against most people is because Medicare doesn't pay much. So me as a MBA getting money, figuring out the bills for our division, Medicare reimburses about $50 for a 30-minute visit, and Blue Cross Blue Shield reimburses about $240 for a 30-minute visit. So it's not whether or not we're getting paid, it's actually more about if you're a private practice doc, it's very hard to just have Medicare only, which is why you've seen so many docs around here go concierge or direct pay. Northwestern's lovely because I'm always in the red, and they're just nice because they know that we bring value, which is what I bring to the Clare too. So I would say if you'd like 2 doctors, or if you'd be interested in seeing a geriatrician for primary care, they both have openings. But finding a doctor is definitely difficult. I agree with you.
Where are their offices? Are they-
Galter 18.
Where?
Galter 18. So right next to the other general internal medicine docs. So Northwestern likes us so much that they actually, we got our new exam rooms built out. I always love it when people want to spend money on me and my seniors. So they actually gave us exam rooms that are double size. So think about how important space is. And that's one of the things, the rooms up here are pretty decent size, but our exam rooms are now double sized, which is hard to believe in Chicago with how expensive property is.
I got one.
Hold on one second.
Do those doctors you mentioned, do they see you when you're actually sick? I find most doctors at most Rush and Northwestern don't see you when you're actually sick.
I actually don't see my own doctor when I'm sick. The question, yeah, no worries. So the question is, do doctors actually see you when you're sick, your primary care doctors? I actually don't see my own primary care doctor when I get sick. I love going to the immediate care centers. The reason I myself go immediate care, and this is a geriatrician, this is the doctor whose doctor actually works in the practice right next to mine, so I could easily give her a call and say, can you see me, I'm sick. I like going to immediate care better because at the immediate cares I can get an x-ray, I can get blood drawn, I can get it diagnosed within 15 minutes. Whereas if I go see any doctor, I'm going to see them, they're going to send me for labs, they're going to send me to another room for another floor to get x-rays. They may or not happen all at one time. And I'll tell you, I've been over at the immediate care that's across from Northwestern. They've diagnosed me with double pneumonia, which was fun. They've sewn up my wounds because I've cut myself many times trying to cook. And that's kind of how I like to do it, just because I feel like the primary care doc is there for your chronic issues, but if it's something that you need to be seen, you need an x-ray, you need blood work, it's usually faster, just do it immediate care, and that's what I tend to do. Over here.
Where is this example? Where is this immediate?
Oh yeah, so immediate care is actually right across the street from Northwestern. So
It's on Fairbanks.
it's on Fairbanks. Yeah, so it's where the old Panera Bread is.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's across from Stan's Donuts. Not a good Italian joint, but I had 1 or 2 donuts in my lifetime. So it's across from Stan's Donuts where the old Panera Bread used to be by Fifth Third Bank or First American Bank. And so you can even register online and show up, and they'll see you in 15 minutes or less. Yeah.
I read an article, I think it was in the New York Times, that the Mediterranean diet is not only good for Alzheimer's prevention, but also women's cardiac issues. Have you read that?
Yes, so Mediterranean diet is supposed to be good for your blood pressure, for heart disease, for diabetes. There's just so many good things that are coming out because it's considered like an anti-inflammatory diet. So do I wish I had a Sicilian grandmother or mother? Yes, but I had Wisconsinite roots.
So what about the Indian and Eastern Asian, that diet also, I think sometimes they pull.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. There's been research out there that turmeric, which is used in a lot of curry dishes, is supposed to be an antioxidant. The only problem is that some of these diets have other things that are not ideal, like ghee, that are high lard-based food. There's been research that has shown seaweed. So eating seaweed can actually help you, or diets that are high in seaweed actually can be preventative. That's with the belief that that's also decreasing inflammation, and that was big in Asian cultures. I'm an okay fan of seaweed, like in certain dishes, but like every day, you know, eating pounds of seaweed, I think is hard for most Americans to consume.
They sell it at Trader Joe's like a potato chip.
I don't know if that's good though. I think it has to be the raw stuff.
Does
Over
anybody
here?
else have any questions for Dr. Lindquist?
Yeah, over here.
I have one question about this olive oil.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I think I found out more about the olive oil.
Yeah,
Yes.
because a few years ago,
Mark 'em around.
60 Minutes, there was a huge thing about this olive oil story. And about 95% is not good, it's not up to the mark.
Yes. So the question slash comment was that there was a controversy about olive oil. 95% of what's in the content of the olive oil is actually not good. It's true. That's why you need to read where it comes from. So for instance, you can sometimes if you just look at the olive oil from the side of the just the tag that says extra virgin olive oil or saute olive oil, you'll see now those good for grilling, good for sauteing. It's a marketing thing, right? With all due respect to my friends here. The idea is to look where the olives come from. Is that a mix of olives? For instance, a lot of the Italian olive oil, I have now 40% olives from Greece, 40% olives from, and then there's Pomace olives that are mixed in there. Not the same as the good olives for you to do olive oil. One good way to select olive oil normally is if you get the first press extra virgin olive oil, that's the very first olive oil that comes out from the olives when they're, when they smash it to get the oil out of it. And then there is the mixes, just like wine. Like I said before, there is pure grapes Pinot Noir, but then there is Pinot Noir, there is 70% Pinot Noir and some other mixes in there. Is that the same? It's not the same. It's not going to be the same. 95% of it was, I think what they were using is a mix of sesame seed oil sometimes and olive oil. And so you have to really look at the product that you're buying. Just like anything else, you want to make sure that you look at the ingredients. The ingredients should be 100% olives from, doesn't matter where they come from, as long as there is 100% olives from. That's all there should be in the olive oil, nothing else. And then it might explain whether or not it's first press or just, regular olive oil, which is whatever comes first, it comes after. But there is a notable difference in price too. Some of the very good extra virgin olive oil first press go for a bottle of 750 milliliter for about $30 to $40. If you go to Costco, you buy one of those 3 liters olive oil, saute olive oil for $30 to $40. So big difference. But yes, that is a very good observation. You should always look at ingredients, no matter what it is.
That's impressive. I could listen to him all day.
You don't want to.
No. There's a question in the back.
Yes.
I hope it's more olive oil.
No.
Good. Retired for 50 years. Frozen foods.
Yeah.
Frozen vegetables, frozen berries, are they applicable?
Yeah, so frozen, the question is frozen vegetables, frozen berries okay? And yeah, they actually are. So if you've got, I'm sorry if they aren't.
They are.
From a medical perspective, frozen vegetables, frozen berries are fine. It's the processed frozen foods. So your mac and cheeses, your frozen pizzas, so stuff that's been processed multiple times in order for it to, before it's frozen. And so that's why those are fine to use. I use frozen vegetables. I actually don't think you guys use much frozen vegetables here. So over here.
So back to the issue of your mother or grandmother
Oh, yeah.
putting the tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Is jarred tomato sauce considered processed? If it doesn't have a lot of fat
It
in it?
depends on who doesn't know this. We used to do tomato sauce for ourselves. So one of the things that we used to do growing up as a kid, when it was tomato season, right around July and August, we would buy cases of tomato. And we would do the pelati, it's called, which is basically your chunks of tomatoes. you know, the one that you buy on cans now to make the tomato sauce. We would do that ourselves. And again, it was just tomato being slowly braised and then peeled off, smashed by hands, put in the bottle, top off, put aside, right? The funny thing is that all it was, the only preservative was in the tomato sauce that we make was salt. That's it, right? Now you buy the cans of tomatoes and there's all kinds of things because they have to preserve it for whatever many years, right? We just made enough for us to have through the winter, really, that was it. So going back to, there are some tomatoes, and again, if you just look at the labels and you look at it, to me anything that is preservable for more than a 3 months time frame, it's obviously going to be a lot more processed than something that needs to be eaten within 3 days. That's the way I kind of go shopping when I go to a grocery store, right? Do I want something that can, and sometimes you have to, sometimes you do have it for emergency, whatever the case is. But food now, because of people being a lot more aware of what they're eating, offers a good variety of choices. And again, it's about budget, it's about what you want to spend, it's about what do you think of it and what you want to put in your body. If I would what I keep in mind and what we keep in mind here at the Clare, that is, by the way, something that we work with as of our policy. Our policy is we don't keep anything past 3 days once it's open, right? So we work with food that has to be discarded within 3 days after it's being opened, right? Do we use cans of tomatoes sometimes? We do. But even on the cans of tomatoes, we want to make sure that the ingredients, the sodium content, and other preservatives are not present. So we select whatever cans we want to select. It's a little more expensive at the Clare because of that.
I was actually talking about the jarred marinara sauce.
Yes, we make those too. We used to make those. Is that what you're referring?
Yeah, I'm just saying, is that considered processed?
Well, in a way it is, but not as, there is processed and ultra processed. There is everything that is cooked is processed, right? Once you change the chemical component of natural food, you're processing it. So if you go from raw fish to, you know, fried fish or to sauteed fish, you're changing the chemical composition of it, which means you're processing it. It's not all food that is processed is necessarily unhealthy. Like I said, if you want to preserve fish like we used to do back in the days, just by covering it with salt and dry it under the sun, it's processed. But it's not, there is no other chemicals added to that will make you sick. You just have to clean up the salt and eat it when you're ready for it. So it is processed, but it's not all, I guess I should say not all
Not
processed food.
ultra-processed.
Yeah, not ultra processed.
Yeah.
The thing is, ultra processed would be, this is the example that I always give my kids. You can eat corn on the cob, right? Or you can eat popcorn, or you can eat cereals that are made of corn, right? If you read the labels on all, there's no label on the corn on the cob that tells you it's good. Yes, it's got sugar in it, but it's natural, so it's not gonna really. I'm not a doctor, so please don't.
No, I'm not a
But it's not going to affect your diabetes the same way as the sugary cornflakes or the popcorn, right? So you go from natural food to a little processed or minimally processed, the popcorn, to the cereal, which then they tell you it's healthy, is anything but healthy, because it's got all kinds of things in there besides just the corn. The corn becomes like 0.001% of the ingredient that it's actually on those cereals.
Such a good analogy.
Yeah. Doesn't work all the time, but this time it worked. I didn't expect to talk today, so I mean, just,
That's great.
yes.
What do you have to say about GMO foods?
What I have to say about GMO foods. I think just the same thing that I said about the same thing that I would say about the processed food. Not all genetically modified food is bad for you, right? And again, I'm going to go back into agriculture, right? We started with seeds, and we have now seeds and plants that have been cross-pollinated, right? So that's genetically modified. right? Whether it's done in a lab or it's done naturally, we have done this since the beginning of times. The problem is when we start adding things that are not naturally found in the environment. Those chemicals, those preservatives that are made in labs and add to it to grow a tomato 3 times the size that it should be, that's a problem. But to grow a seed that can be, if you want to do heirloom tomatoes, for instance, right? The heirloom tomatoes that are really popular everywhere you go now, some of the finest restaurants use it. Heirloom tomatoes, in essence, are genetically modified tomatoes. They're still okay to have because there isn't a lot of processing into it. There isn't a lot of extra stuff in it besides just cross-pollinating or cross-utilizing the same seeds. So again, we could go to extremes in many ways, but I would say not all GMOs are necessarily bad, especially if they can help feed, countries where they can't grow certain things or where they don't have enough resources to do that. I'm all pro for it. Hope you don't dislike me for that. Anything
Does anybody
else?
else have any questions for Francesco or Dr. Lindquist?
This is for Dr. Lindquist. What was the doctor's name? Dr. Alex? And I just got P.
Petragos, P-E-T-R. I can write it down for you if you want. P-E-T-R-A-K-O-S and Dr. Ellie, G-E-L-L-E-R.
Cool.
I
Thank
can
you.
give you my phone number too.
What is that?
So the phone number is 312-695-4525.
Okay.
And that's Northwestern Geriatrics. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you to you for coming. That was amazing. So feel free if there's any questions for me, for Kathy, for any of the Clare team, we'd be happy to answer. And I'll pass it over to Kathy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Lindquist. Lucas and I are available anytime you like to come and learn more about the Clare. Just give us a call. Our cards are right outside here. And if anyone's interested in a tour today, we could probably do a brief one today as well. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.